The question of Texas recently came to the forefront, and many global media outlets started discussing the conflict between federal and local authorities due to the immigration crisis at the border. Alongside this, there have been speculations about whether Texas can secede from the United States and how it could happen. In this video, we will look at whether Texas can really secede and whether there are grounds for this. Immigration crisis. First, it's worth talking about the current problem that has arisen between Texas and the federal states. The migration crisis is not a new issue for the United States, but in recent years it has worsened significantly. Millions of people enter the United States every year, usually through the southern borders, including through Texas. Recent discussions in Congress have not brought any resolution, apparently due to the opposition of Donald Trump, who does not want an end to this crisis under Biden. Local authorities took matters into their own hands, hindering the passage of illegal migrants and installing additional barriers on the border. However, federal authorities, represented by the Border Guard Services, intervened and removed all installed barriers. On this basis, a conflict ensued, resulting in the Supreme Court of the United States supporting Biden's position and federal authorities. Although State Governor Gregor Abbott refused to comply with the court's decision, stating that the state can solve the problem of intrusion independently. This is how he described the illegal border crossing by migrants. In the end, Republican states supported him. Against this background, rumors began to circulate about Texas secession. Were there any similar conflicts before? Yes, they happen regularly on various occasions. The last time before this, there were disagreements about COVID restrictions, affecting many Republican states, including Texas. The latter were able to defend their rights, and in the territory of Republican states, strict restrictions were not introduced, unlike the Democratic ones. Potential separation of Texas. So let's move on and talk about the potential separation of Texas. The state of Texas has real potential, in fact, very significant. It is one of the richest and most populous states in America, having a convenient geographical location. By many measures, Texas is inferior only to California. The population of Texas is 30 million people, more than the average country in Europe. The largest state GDP amounts to $24 billion for the year. If Texas becomes independent, it will immediately reach the 8th position globally in this indicator, surpassing Italy, Canada, and Russia, if, of course, all economic potential can be preserved. In Texas itself, there are the largest American companies such as Oracle, Dell, ExxonMobil, Tesla, and many others. The economic potential is also backed by large oil reserves. There is also access to the sea, fundamentally important for secession and establishing independent trading routes and contracts. So, the potential the state has is considerable, with a serious economic basis, convenient location, and a large population, providing opportunities for existence outside the United States system, at least in theory. Basis for secession. What is the basis for secession? Texas has a pretty unique history in the context of other states in the composition of the American state, and it even has its own experience of independence from 1836 to 1846, after which it finally became part of the United States. No other American state shares such historical independence. Texas has an interesting history that modern separatists often rely on. Originally, Texas territory was part of the Mexican state, which gained independence at the beginning of the 19th century. The land was sparsely populated, and the authorities invited American colonists to develop it. This proved profitable, as American colonists soon became the main population of the region. In 1835, a revolution began in Texas, primarily triggered by issues related to slavery. Oddly enough, Mexico decided to ban slavery, and local residents strongly opposed this. The war ensued, and with the support of the United States, Texas gained independence and formed an independent republic. Rumors about joining the United States literally began immediately, but the annexation took place only 10 years later in 1845. That's when Texas officially became part of the United States. However, the question of its status has often arisen since then, as the precedent was unique and the process differed from that of other states. Later, a war with Mexico occurred, after which the United States took possession of even more Mexican land. Thus, historical Texas has a basis for its independence, and it even existed as the Republic of Texas for 10 years. Is there such a possibility? However, there is a reason for this purely nominal and not backed up by any real legislative acts. In fact, the independence of Texas is no more than historical information that had no effect on its situation within the United States. The story of an independent Texas essentially ended in 1945 and soon gained a second wind when the Civil War erupted in the United States. Southern states, one after another, began to proclaim their independence in 1861. Texas joined the Confederacy on March 1st of that year, proclaiming state independence. However, the very next day, the state had already joined the Confederate States of America. After the Confederate defeats in 1865, Texas was reincorporated into the United States in 1870, marking the beginning of a period known as the Reconstruction of the South. According to the case Texas v. White in 1869, the state did not formally separate from the United States and was equally included in their composition. However, what is more important in this matter is that the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States does not allow states to unilaterally separate. All documents published by the Confederates were found to be invalid. This particular judicial decision still plays an important role in the American state. The Civil War brought the final point to the issue of secession, establishing a consensus that secession of the states cannot be carried out, fundamentally because no state, including Texas, can pursue separation. The Civil War solidified the victory of the Federation, with a stronger centralized government over the Confederacy, a freer organization of statehood. In our time, in 2006, a new decree was issued by the Supreme Court, essentially confirming this consensus by stating that the Civil War settled this constitutional question once and for all. So, purely legislatively and from the point of view of legitimacy, the state of Texas, like any other state in America, cannot separate from the general states. Despite this, there have always been separatist movements of one kind or another in the territory of Texas. However, these movements are never popular. After the Civil War, local residents began to build their own identity around the theme of the Confederacy, which was extremely popular, along with local elements like cowboys. In the 90s, a rather interesting and radical organization called the Republic of Texas emerged. Its participants claimed that the annexation of Texas was illegal, and also accused the United States government of globalism and the denial of Christian values. A claim was filed against the federal government demanding reparations for the Civil War in the amount of $93 trillion. After a series of arrests, this escalated into a real collision. The leader of the movement, McLaren, took hostages and blackmailed the government, but he was arrested in '97 and is now serving a 99-year prison sentence. Existed and still exist more moderate movements advocating for separation. The Texas National Movement just recently proposed holding a referendum in Texas for secession and even addressed such requests to local authorities. There was a particular aggravation with the advent of Obama. At that time, many local residents were unhappy with the Democratic president. A separate wave occurred during Brexit, and even a similar term, Texas, emerged, calling for the secession of Texas from the USA. Among local authorities, there are even lobbyists for such interests. For example, a member of the local Chamber of Representatives submitted a bill for holding a referendum in the state in the year 2024. However, all these movements as a whole are not of significant interest to the population, and there is no global demand from society for the secession of Texas. Furthermore, the states have quite wide authority to decide their own problems. To summarize, it is worth saying that the current crisis between Texas and federal authorities is not new. Texas has an interesting history of joining the United States. However, legislatively, this does not grant the state any rights to secession. Despite the existence of separatist movements in the state, they do not enjoy widespread popularity and are unlikely to gain it in the near future. Thank you for watching. See ya.